When I realized this, I questioned the whole industry, in the early 2000s. I questioned the industry and I thought to myself, Hollywood is bad. So Hollywood is about money for the most part. So that is really the weak spot there. Movies, this is exactly the problem today. You don't have a story, so you must be very violent in your language, must be very violent what you show, because there's no story. And you have bad actors in addition to this. What will you do? To me, I said, you know what, it should be very simple. Good is good, bad is bad. It should be not the other way. It should be not like, actually evil is good and good is bad.
Bonjour, Monsieur Peschken.
Thank you for accepting this interview for NTD France. You are a German and American producer, director and journalist. You began your career producing and directing films for television. You also worked later in Hollywood, where you contributed to several international film productions. I'd like to welcome you today to the Côte Espoir restaurant at the Bristol Hotel in Geneva to talk about your career as a producer and journalist. Let's start with your career in Hollywood. You are a producer with rather conservative values, and you've navigated an environment known for its progressive tendencies. I imagine it has been quite a challenge. How did you manage to stand out from the crowd while maintaining your ideas and values?
Interesting question. I have to say, though, that it was not always this way. When I came to Hollywood in the mid-90s, I would not consider myself being a Christian. I was Protestant, of course. I'm from Germany, so I was born Protestant, but I had not any, connection to my religion. In America, then I somehow became an American Christian, in a way, through American Christian television, actually. But still, it was not something that affected my life immediately in my work. My work in Hollywood in the first few years with Roger Corman, by the way, I did the first films with Roger Corman, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. Low-budget movies, but for me it was very interesting, to get into the film industry. This was always my dream, in Germany, going to Hollywood, being a cameraman or a producer. And I did not think of values in that sense, or ethics or morals. I said, oh, that's fun, it's interesting. A horror movie, great. Action movie, perfect. Comedy, oh yeah, very stupid but funny. I met all these actors like Martin Sheen and Rod Steiger and all these stars. Oh, great, what a life. So I was really very much in the making of the films that interested me the most, but not so much on about the perhaps impact that the movie will have. So that came later, but my faith at this time, at the beginning, was not part really of my business there in the film business.
Comment est-ce que le changement s'est fait? How did it change? At which moment do you realize its importance to bring values to the public when you produce a movie? When did you realize its importance?
Good, very good question, because it took many years. It took many years, and learning the inside of the industry, to see scripts, to see what movies people make, and asking the question, why do they make that movie? Why do they make this movie? Is there anything more than that? And when I became more aware of my Christianity, let's say, of my Christian faith, which was in the later 90s somewhere, then I started really thinking, wait a minute, movies have an impact on people. And when you say, like a message, for example, movies have a message. I thought movies have a message. So when you say this in Hollywood, most people will say, you know what, if you want to send a message, go to Western Union. Because, for them, they have no message. We give the people what they want. What do you mean by message? So I thought about, message, there must be something in the movies that transports something so that the viewer, that has an impact on the viewer. Somehow it must have an impact. And in the late 90s, there were a very bad incident, the Columbine shootings. I don't know if you remember that, where basically school kids killed their comrades in the school, and they wear these outfits that they had seen in an Oliver Stone movie. So everyone said, wait a minute, wasn't it maybe because they saw this as the idols, and then they really went into the school and killed, I don't know, many of these kids. And during that time, I was member of the Producers Guild of America during that time, and the president of the Producers Guild back then, Tom Mount, he asked me if I want to become the chairman of the Social Awareness Committee of the Producers Guild of America, which basically is sort of like, the social awareness, meaning the impact of films. So I started studying the impact of movies, and the first thing I noticed, I learned, was the Hays Code, the production code from the mid-30s, which basically, when you research that, so we don't have to go into the subject, anyone who's interested can go in Wikipedia and research all these things. The Hays Code basically regulated the content of films before the movie got made. Meaning that, a little background story, in the 30s there were movies made where people, especially religious people, Jewish people, Christian people, Catholics or evangelical Christians, they had a problem with certain, shall we say, images in movies, and how women are depicted and so forth. And so they actually, the priests in the church were preaching, if you watch this movie, you commit a sin. So people did not go and see the movie. And then they went to Hollywood, to the producers, and they said, listen, if you do not change this, we will preach in our churches that to see a movie like this is sin, and people will not go there, and you will lose a lot of money. So Hollywood is about money for the most part. So that is really the weak spot there. So they said, okay, what to do? And they said, okay, we will have a code, a production code, that we suggest to you, and you yourself will then obey the code. It's not let's say, a government, sort of censorship. No, it's a self-imposed censorship. So long story short, they went to the studios, and all the studios agreed to obey that code. And the code had, for example, a provision where it says that the movies should not draw the sympathy of the audience to evil and bad people, but instead to the good. And it should not celebrate evil and wrongdoing. There were many, many more provisions in that code, but that was basically the highlight code. So I studied this a little, and I thought to myself, there's really, in other words, there was a time in Hollywood where they really thought about the impact and the content. But then in the 60s, this Hays Code was basically ended, and there came the so-called MPAA, Motion Picture of America rating system. When you see in a movie like rated R or rated PG, which means basically that someone, after the movie was made, looked at the film and then determined, okay, this movie is for younger people, this is not, and so forth. But the difference between the Hays Code and this rating system was that the Hays Code applied before the movie were made, while the rating system applied after the movie was made. Yeah. So in other words, it was already done anyway, and that said, okay, this is good, bad, and so forth, this film, but there was no influence they had anymore. This was the new way of making movies, and to have today still, the rating system. So to shorten a few years, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to have a panel in America, in Hollywood, with experts on the impact on movies on society? And when I tried really to do this, the Producers Guild people said, no, Chris, this is not a good idea.
For what reasons exactly?
Yeah, well, I can only, guess, but they didn't want that. To expose, basically, to say, look, perhaps the movies have an influence over people, and because of that, people doing bad things. By the way, that's the year, the end of 1999, when I left the Producers Guild. Because I thought they're all hypocrites. Because on one hand, they know exactly what I'm talking about. They're not stupid. On the other hand, they don't want to go into public and discuss this. So do movies have an impact? Yes, in my opinion, 100%. Do films in general have an impact? Absolutely. Do you think the commercial industry, Coca-Cola and McDonald's and I don't know what, invest millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for commercials on TV if it had no impact on people? Of course it does have an impact on people. It can change people's mind. And the movie's the same thing. Absolutely. And when that happens, more or less, then with the values that I believe in, as a Christian, I had certain problems with certain content. Not with all of it, but certain content. Because I thought you have a responsibility for what you say and what you show in a movie theater. Especially when young people see it that have not the capacity yet, developed yet, to think really and evaluate in the right way.
Aujourd'hui, with the rise of wokeness and progressive ideas increasingly dominating the movie industry, it's often said that conservative voices like yours face hurdles and a form of discrimination. Was it the case after you left this group of reflection? Was it difficult for you to make your mark, to find your way in Hollywood?
Well, in short, probably more difficult, if at all possible. But there's another thing when you mentioned this term, woke. To me, this is a stamp. You put a stamp on something. This person is that, this person is this is that, this is that. Stamps, stamps, stamps. The only thing that I have to do with woke is this morning when I woke up. Because what do you mean woke? Woke means I'm awake, I'm aware, I'm looking for something, But what they mean is they want to, prevent discrimination, for example. They want to take care of political correctness and so forth. But the question is not, is this a conservative or a liberal issue? There are political correct conservatives, there are political correct leftists and left people. That doesn't matter. The question is not, that. The question is who interprets and defines that term. And this term was, I think, is in 2010 or so, that term came up really. And the question is who controls today and defines the definition of that term? Because, in my opinion, it's exactly the same people that define the term that are also the ones, who judge you for using it or not using it and telling you you are racist because you say this, you anti-Semite because you say this and so forth. To me, it's a stamping, put a stamp on something, a label on somebody and people, just to discriminate them. In itself, I think to say, woke this, woke that, is already discrimination. If you accuse me being conservative and then you assume automatically, not you personally, of course, but assume automatically that I must be a person that is maybe politically not correct or discriminates against other people, but because you are on the left side and you put that term on the people and defined it, you are right, and therefore you can say, well, Peschken, you are wrong with our definition. And I would say, sure, but let's say, if we are in power, for example, politically speaking, and we would define it another way, you have the same problem. So it's not fair either. But yes, in Hollywood, I would say that you have to be very careful, how you depict certain things in movies. You see it on Netflix and so forth, how much it changed.
Were you still able to produce the movies you wanted to produce and to bring the values to the screen like you wanted to do at that moment when you realized you can't really say what you want, or how was it?
No. When I realized this, I questioned the whole industry, the early 2000s. I questioned the industry and I thought to myself, Hollywood is bad. There's nothing good with it. So it was the opposite from 10 years before, where I liked to go to Hollywood to make movies. All of a sudden I was very depressed, frustrated, said, there's something wrong. And so what I did, I had a camera, and I said, you know what, Los Angeles, there are a lot of homeless people. So I started a ministry to help homeless people in the streets, to end their homelessness. And I did that for 3.5 years, and I filmed it, and gave it to a Christian television network. to interview homeless people and ask them why they are homeless. In a country like America, homeless people. I mean, it's really almost like unbelievable. Even here, when we came to the hotel, driving here Switzerland, seeing people that are begging for money in a rich country like Switzerland or in Germany. This is unbelievable, in the 21st century. So in America, in Los Angeles, it's very, very bad. Skid Row is the heavy area there where all the homeless people live, if you can say that they live there. And I learned a lot during that time, because asking the people why they become homeless and so forth. And I thought, there's probably something more important in life than making movies in Hollywood and making money. And I think a very bad picture for that was one day when I was in downtown Los Angeles. And you had on one side of the streets, you had these tents with all the homeless people in there. And on the left side, you had a movie set from big movie production like Warner Brothers or Universal. And they had this catering for people, they have, very expensive catering, food. So there was a lot of food there. And it was behind a fence where they filmed. They had their set over there, and here were the homeless people. And that describes to me America. Because here had you people nothing to eat, starving to death, and on the other side, people that have everything they want, and when they're done with that food, they throw it away. Throwaway culture, in that sense. And that was something that really made me thinking about values and so forth a lot during that time, and I was still in America.
Therefore, what are your thoughts on the ideas and messages being conveyed today by contemporary cinema? What are the impacts on society concretely from that kind of movies?
Well, like I said before, today it's even probably very heavy and very sophisticated through technology, etc., to manipulate people with subliminal messages, for example, music, sounds, words, images. I think that the movie industry today, for the most part, not all of them, there are filmmakers, and there are movies probably that do not pursue a certain agenda, but most, I think, they pursue a very commercial agenda, for example, to sell something, or they pursue a political agenda to sell a certain political ideology. And to...
What, for example? What idea?
Well, you say woke, for example, that's an example, or...
So left wing, more than...
Yeah, again, left, right, if you would ask me, what are you, Chris? Are you left, right, middle? I would say, what? There are many good values on the left, many good values on the right, many good values in the middle, and many good values even outside of that. And there are a lot of bad values on the left, bad values on the right, bad values in the middle, and many, many outside of that. So it really depends. Today is not like really black and white and left and right. I think it changes on a daily basis almost. Look in politics. Today we look at politicians, that are supporting war, that 20, 30 years ago, Green parties, you would say, these people were, make love, no war. Peace people. Today they say we have to win the war. This is really so. I don't like personally to put a label on it. To say, well, they do this and they do that. One thing is for sure: Hollywood, for the most part, is about money. And if they see there's a trend out there for whatever reasons, they make a movie that caters to that particular trend. And in addition to that, they are trendsetters. They set the trend also. And so they make then more money. There's a lot of ideology with it, absolutely, and probably political even influence from people that finance movies, for example, people that control the news media and so on. But I would not say left, right, middle. Personally, I wouldn't say that. I would say on all sides there are good people, there are bad people, and so forth.
Right, that's right. You are now planning to leave Europe and to start a film studio company in Las Vegas. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about this film studio of yours?
Yeah, of course, I can tell you about it. The short version would take probably 5 hours. And I don't think you have that time. So I make a very short version, a short film version, so to speak. I thought, some time ago, looking back at my life and thinking, okay, what did you learn? What did you see? What did you experience in your life? And what are you doing today? Does this match? Is this in proportion? Is this balanced? Are you today in what you do? Does this reflect what you can do or not? Is this it? And the answer was no, it's not. What I do today is very important and very good. Absolutely, no doubt about it, and I like to do it. But in proportion to what I can do, it's very small. And so I am 69. So I can say, well, let's see what the next 30 years bring. Who knows? So I'm saying to myself, okay, from what I know now, why not at least trying to make a mark with films that we will know have an impact, yes, but convey a certain message only. So in my case, and then I answer the question about the studio itself. To me, I said, you know what, it should be very simple. Good is good, bad is bad. It should be not the other way. It should be not like, actually evil is good and good is bad. Of course there are good people that are evil too. There are evil people that are good too, maybe. But in a movie, to somehow manipulate the people to the idea that wrongdoing, to a certain extent, can be maybe not so wrong because, you have a reason why you killed that person. Please, so you have to understand me, and to depict certain people and certain professions in movies, like priests, for example. They're all child molesters or psychopaths in movies because people hate the church, the Catholic Church in particular, and they have problems with that. But this is to me like stereotypes even. Fair and balanced in a way to say, look, okay, the good is good, the evil is evil. The good always wins, the evil doesn't, because that's my belief as a Christian. The good will win. It doesn't matter how bad the evil looks. It doesn't matter to me. The evil looks actually sometimes much more powerful than the good. Okay, fine. Smokes and mirrors, like Las Vegas shows. And that brings us to the Las Vegas, not because of that, but I plan to start there a film production company with a studio for films in moderate budget areas, not expensive movies. You would say probably low budget films for certain categories and markets, but with a clear, simple message, so that people can say, well, it's a nice film, we had some fun, but at the same time, the message of the movie was, it's better to be good than to be not good. And if you are good and you experience problems in life, a lot, resistance with your goodness, doesn't matter. Just continue. At the end of the day, you will succeed with it. Okay, so that's more or less the very simple, simple message.
C'est très inspirant. It's really inspiring. But just one question. Tell me, why did you choose Las Vegas for your film studio and not Hollywood?
Yeah, because there is a trend, I think, in Hollywood. The big studios, for example, Sony Pictures, and Howard Hughes Industries, they are building a studio in Las Vegas now with Mark Wahlberg, the actor, who's supporting that. A big studio. I mean, it's really a huge studio, like the Hollywood movie studio. But I thought what they do at the end of the day, it's nice. They go there, the economy will change, the real estate prices will go up, etc. But I thought what they do at the end of the day, they take Hollywood and put it to Vegas. Same studio structure, big studio, big movies, big. So I thought, what about the independent film industry? And there I go back to what I learned from Roger Corman, for example, with his structure and company, how he built up a film factory, more or less, making many movies, not just one movie. And also because for the investors that we are, working with, they are not looking for financing a movie. Because to invest in one movie is a big risk. If the movie is not successful, you lose your money. So they want portfolios of films, like 5, 10, 20 movies that we make. So they spread their risk, more or less. And that is not enough. They need a certain corporate structure, so you have to have a company. So I thought, okay, we have a corporate structure, we have a company, and the company has a big warehouse, and the warehouse is our studio, because we don't need big studios like the Hollywood movie studios have. We have a studio, we have our distribution in-house, we produce the movies in America and have producers worldwide producing movies for us. And that way we can get 20 to 30 movies a year. So, we have a lot in the portfolio that if everything goes right and we do it, from a financial standpoint in the right way, we will be successful. And Las Vegas also has one other advantage. It's a so-called right-to-work state. Unlike California, California is a union-controlled state. In Las Vegas, you can make movies, without unions, which of course the prices, everything is lower there. Also the taxes, a lot of tax reliefs. And also I think that the trend will go to Las Vegas. We see that this year in November, for example, the very known, prominent American film market, AFM, there was many, many years, always, every year in Santa Monica, Los Angeles. For the first time ever, will be in Las Vegas this year. So to me, it shows there is, someone is moving there. That's why I chose Las Vegas and not Hollywood.
Understood. You talked about showing good and bad in movies. Do you intend to show the violence too, like movies do today? They show a lot of violence. When they depict the bad character, there is always violence. Do you intend to do that too?
I don't have a problem with violence in movies per se, as long as the violence is justified. For example, if you show a movie and your objective is to show how inhumane war is, you must show this. You have to see that people get killed, bloody and all this, in order to show the violence and the brutality. You cannot just, talk about it in the film to make your point. The same with violence in general in movies. If it's justified. Justified means, does it transport your objective, your story, or what you want to say? Does it do that? Or is it just, violence for violence sake? Because you don't have a story. For most movies, this is exactly the problem today. You don't have a story, so you must be very violent in your language, must be very violent what you show, because there's no story. And you have bad actors in addition to this, so you have no actors, no story. Wow, what will you do? Then the only thing you can do is have a good camera, film the whole thing and make it look like nice, so people think they get something. But at the end of the day, it's not a story about people. It's a technology-oriented story. It is violence for violence sake, shooting and killing and so forth, just because, and it makes no sense. So it has to be an intelligent way. If I want to show violence, then the answer has to be, or my question is, why do I have to show this violence in that way I do it? I have to because I want to show violence is bad. Why do I have to show the evil as a, wonderful, good-looking man or woman and powerful? Why? Because the evil is that. In order to show the power of evil. But then at the same time, I have to show the goodness of good and of other people, and why, at the end of the day, through their character, through their values and so forth, through their moral values, ethical values, succeed and win.
What about erotism? We know that today it has a really bad influence on young children that are sometimes seeing movies with scenes like that. What do you want to do about that?
Well, there was a time when you look back in Hollywood, when you look back in the European film industry, where you showed nothing and saying everything. Because the fantasy of the audience is more colorful than anything you can show. And it goes for blood and sex the same way. So why would I say, this is it, and show it? It takes away, in a way, always the fantasy that comes with it. I have no problems, I think it should be, especially when movies are, for young people today, to have some sort of ethical and moral boundaries. To think everyone can watch what he wants, sure. When he's a grown-up person, says, okay, I want to see films with naked women, fine. Some producer will make them. You cannot forbid that. But that's for everyone, for each producer, personal decision. For me, for example, I don't do this. I don't want that. I'm not saying all these other people are bad that do that. No, okay, they have to know what they do. I know what I do. I would not put certain images in front of people. The audiences in general, worldwide, are not as stupid and naive as Hollywood and some people would like them to be, and like to treat them, as if they are people, of less intelligence, or they don't know, so that they are in power and say, well, you know what, we tell you how the world looks, we tell you, what you think and what you have to eat, we tell you how you can be a part of society. You have to wear these shoes, you have to wear these, that type of hairstyle, etc., and so forth. But I believe that regular people are not that way. But they don't get that food that provides that, for the most part. I'm not saying there's no movies in the world that do that. Of course, there are a lot of good companies, absolutely. Internationally, in America, everywhere. Good filmmakers, no doubt about it. And I won't contribute to that. You can make money and being morally and ethically very, very aware, absolutely, by being intelligent and having intelligent concepts where the main attraction in your movie are the people, not the technology. Because technology in a movie costs a lot of money. Not only the camera equipment, but from CGI and everything that you have to do and visual effects, it costs at the end of the day a lot of money. Even though it's cheaper today than it was maybe 20 years ago, but still it's, But if your story is CGI, visual effects, and your camera, you have no story, And so you have to go back to the here you're in, France, around the corner, film noir. That's to me filmmaking, film noir. The people that filmed with hand cameras, certain life scenes somewhere in black and white, which of course you can do today. If you film black and white, you are outed yourself from anything. But the film noir in that, they played with light, shadow and light, with the camera angles, etc., because they didn't have a lot of money to make the movies, so they had to be very creative. So I think that what we want to do is movies with moderate budgets, where the filmmakers, the directors, the cameramen, and so forth, can be very creative, to visualize our story. But there has to be a story first. So it has to be a story of people, of something that has to do with people. People are the center of it. People like to see stories about people. And there has to be, if you will, a certain message in it. What do you want to say with this film? It's just 90 minutes, just fun? No, there is something in it. And like I said, for me, maybe the message is very simple. Good always prevails over evil.
But Mr. Peschken, you're not just a producer, you are also a journalist. A challenge in 2024. Historically, the profession valued the principles of truth and justice, values that resonate strongly with especially Christian teachings. Do you think these principles still guide journalism today?
In mainstream media, I don't think so. In mainstream media, no. My personal opinion, definitely not. There is media that does that. Yes, there are journalists that do that. For the most part, mainstream journalism, like I said, I myself, do not consider myself journalist in that sense. I'm a correspondent here in Geneva, as the UN, for a Catholic television network, but I do not consider myself a journalist in that sense. The last journalists that I know of were in my childhood, 20, 30 years ago. These were educated people, older people for the most part, that traveled the world, that read a lot of books, that had geopolitical knowledge. There were also people that had a certain sensitivity of what they report and how they speak and what they say, because of the, again, same with the movies, the impact of your message. Today it seems it doesn't matter what the impact is, as long as someone says something or responds, and it's good. And I think that's very dangerous also, especially in the times in which we live right now with all the conflicts going on. You have to really think about what you say to people that trust you as a journalist, for example. Many people watch state television and they think that's the truth. If they say that, that's the truth. So where's the responsibility? For that you must first say what is truth, But as you know, as a Christian, that Pontius Pilate said to Jesus, when Jesus talked about it, he said to Jesus, what is truth? What is truth? Yeah, right, exactly. So today it seems that there are people that say, look, here's the definition of truth. So as long as you do that and say that, it's truth. If you say something else, it's not truth. But that's very objective truth. So relativism and so forth destroyed really what is truth, what is our really values and ethics. This is all, I do not see this in mainstream journalism today anymore, not at all. Again, you have to be responsible, in my opinion, about the impact of what you say and write. You can cause wars, you can heal people, you can make a better world, and you can make a world that is worse.
According to you, what thematics are not analyzed really well in the media? Some thematics are not really correctly analyzed by journalists, like geopolitical conflict, for example. What do you think of that?
So I can only speak really here as, let's say, not an expert, but just a private person telling you what I believe, what I think, my opinion. My opinion is that, especially in the so-called conflict, because what do you mean conflict? Wars, what conflicts? But let's say the conflicts between Russia and Ukraine, for example, or the conflicts between Israel and Palestine, or Hamas, or both. The question to me is, do we really in the media receive both sides? Remember that interview, Tucker Carlson with Putin? That was for me the highlight example. The entire media in Germany in particular, but probably in the Western world, was absolutely against it and pointed the finger on this guy, journalist Tucker Carlson, and say, how can he do this interview with Putin? Putin is our enemy. Cannot talk to this man. What is this? Propaganda for Russia. My wife and I will watch the whole interview. Most people do not even watch the whole interview. We watched the whole interview, and it doesn't matter to me. I want to say, oh, wow, great. What a great guy Putin is. But one thing is for sure, he understands history. And that is for sure. He is an intelligent person. Okay, so now the critics say, so fine, you can say that about this guy, who invaded Ukraine and all this stuff, but fine. Then please show me an interview, in-depth interview in the media, in the mainstream media, with this enemy, and not just with the other guy. Okay, so show both sides. That would be fair and balanced. Then the audience themselves, they can decide exactly. But what we do today is, we decide for you. We show you this clip only and this soundbite only. We decide, we select. Why? Because we have an agenda, political agenda, and therefore we select only this, and that. No, that's not good because it will destroy our agenda. That is not fair and balanced journalism, and in my opinion, it's not journalism at all. This is activism.
That is maybe the reason why you prefer to produce movie than doing journalism, because it became a job that is difficult in 2024, right?
That is a very good thought that you have there. I did not think of it, maybe aware of it completely, conscious, but it has something to do with it. I think that also filmmaking. What is journalism at the end? You put images before people and sounds, music, and this and that, and you edit content. Movie is the same thing. Movie in a way it's not journalism, but movie in a way is also conveying content, information to other people by means of camera and sound. It's not so far apart. But I think in a movie, in an action movie, or in a horror movie, or in other genres, you have a little more freedom to make your point. You can be also probably more fair and balanced in a 90-minute movie than you can, let's say, in a 5-minute interview or in a 30-second soundbite or in a one-liner X message, you know, what do you know? You say this and that. You know, you need also the patience and the time to explain something. You cannot just, you know, explain a very difficult subject with 2 headlines.
We can understand it's not really easy in 2024 to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peschken, for sharing with us today these ideas about film production and journalism. 2 different words that in a certain way come together. Thank you also for bringing us a little hope. There are still producers like you in the film industry who want to convey something positive. Thank you so much.
This interview today.
Thank you so much for giving me the chance to talk to you here about this. Thank you so much. Pleasure.